emergency, the meeting will be conducted in accordance with California Government Code 54953E, as authorized by resolution of the City Council. Please contact the City Clerk at city.clerk@mountainview.gov to obtain a copy of this applicable resolution. All the members are participating in the meeting tonight by video conference with no physical meeting location. Members of the public wishing to observe the meeting may do so at mountainview.legistar.com, on YouTube at mountainview.gov/YouTube, and on Comcast at channel 26. As noted in the meeting agenda, members of the public may provide oral comments during the public comment period for each item by joining the Zoom webinar with the webinar ID of 853-0070-5240. Emails and voicemail messages received before 5 p.m. today were forwarded to EPC. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. Now I'll ask the EPC clerk to call the roll. Ms. Whitehill?
Commissioner Clark?
Here.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Here.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Here.
Commissioner Haymeyer?
Here.
Commissioner Nunez?
Here.
Vice Chair Yin?
Here.
Chair Cranston?
Here. We have a full house. Item 3 on the agenda is meeting minutes. We'll be reviewing the Environmental Planning Commission meeting minutes from March 2nd, 2022. First, are there any items, discussion from the EPC members? None. We'll open up to public comment. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on the meeting minutes? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. The EPC clerk will start the timer to let you know when your time is up. Do you have anyone wishing to speak?
We have no one wishing to speak on the minutes.
All right, then we'll bring it back to the commission. Do I have a motion, Mr. Gutierrez?
So moved.
And is there a second? Commissioner Hairmeyer?
Second, the meeting minutes from March 2nd.
Okay, so Ms. Whitehill, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Clark?
Aye.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Aye.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
You were muted.
Commissioner Gutierrez, could you repeat? Thank you. Commissioner Haymeyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Nunez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Yin?
Aye.
And Chair Cranston?
Fine.
Okay, motion carries unanimously.
Item on the 4 of the agenda is oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the EPC on any matter that is not on the agenda this evening. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this section. State law prohibits the Commission from acting on any non-agenda items. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on a non-agenda item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. The clerk will start the timer to let you know when your time is up. Do we have anyone wishing to speak?
We do have one member of the public, Tim Mather. Tim, I'm going to go ahead and get a timer set up, and then I will allow you to speak. Okay, Tim, you should be able to speak now.
Hi, thank you. I really have more of a question, please. I'm wondering about the status of the project proposed for the former or still current milk pail site and the adjacent parking lot on the corner of San Antonio and California. When will that come before the commission, or what's the status of that project, please?
And we'll bring it back to the, and we have just a general answer to that, Eric, at this point, roughly, or?
I actually don't have it in front of me. If it is something that the commission is interested in hearing, I can look into it over the course of the meeting and provide it during announcements.
Thank you. Any other people wishing to speak?
I'm not seeing anyone else. Thank you.
We'll close open communications and open the study session. Item 5.1 is the study session to discuss the request for a new affordable housing development and personal storage development at 1020 and 1040 Terabella Avenue. Staff presentation will be provided this evening by Edgar Maravilla, project planner, and Stephanie Williams, planning manager and zoning administrator. Edgar.
Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, can you see my screen there?
Yes, thank you.
Great, okay. So, good evening, Chair, Planning Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Edgar Maravilla, Senior Planner with the City of Mountain View. I'm here with Planning Manager and Zoning Administrator Stephanie Williams. Today's presentation is a study session for 1020, 1040 Terabella Avenue, a personal storage development and an affordable housing development. They are two separate projects, but are connected by way of an August 2020 City Council authorized gatekeeper application. Specifically, the sites are proposing a land transfer, and the public storage site will donate over half an acre to the affordable housing site as a community benefit for an increase in FAR. Staff will go more into detail in the following slides. Here's the project location. The parcels are in the Terabella area, in front San Rafael Avenue, Terabella Avenue, and Linda Vista Avenue. 1040 Terabella is a proposed personal storage. It's located directly adjacent to Highway 101, and 1020 Terabella, the affordable housing site, fronts on Terabella Avenue and San Rafael Avenue. The site is surrounded by several existing industrial uses, offices, research and development, and recently there was two mixed-use commercial and multifamily projects entitled Not Visible on the Maps as the projects are not yet constructed, but the approximate location area is shown in orange. This is a reference page highlighting the existing boundary lines, the adjusted lot lines per the gatekeeper community benefit of the land transfer and land donation. You will note the affordable housing site would front on Terabella Avenue, and the public storage facility would be tucked behind adjacent to Highway 101. The image on the left-hand side is the existing boundary lines, and the image on the right-hand side is the adjusted lot lines as would come to life if this project at a later date is approved. As a reminder, this is a study session today. As mentioned earlier, the submittal of this project was authorized by City Council in August 2020. It specifically authorized the submittal of the project to encompass a 100% affordable housing project at 1020 Terabella Avenue, requiring a general plan amendment from general industrial to high density residential, a zoning map amendment from general industrial district to Plan P district, a state density bonus, and a parking reduction. For 1040 Terabella, the public storage site, they are requesting a two-phase approach, a general plan text amendment to allow an increase in FAR, a zoning map amendment from general industrial to Plan P district, and a parking reduction. Here on the images, you're seeing what was submitted at Gatekeeper, and then the arrow showing what is currently being proposed. And the same can be seen for 1040 Terabella, highlighted in gray. Transitioning into 1020 Terabella and the site layout. This is the site layout for 1020 Terabella. The parcel is 1.04 acres in size. The project is allowed 36 to 80 units per acre, and the applicant will use a 32% state density bonus to provide the 108 units being proposed. The site will have individual entrances to all the units fronting on Terabella, and units above would be accessed by way of the entry plaza. Vehicular access into the at-grade and above-grade parking is provided by way of Terabella Avenue and San Rafael Avenue. Here you get to see a better view of the private open space and the overall design of the building, which is a simple modern building formed with flat roofs and prominent window trim. The building is broken up along Terabella Avenue by a third-floor courtyard, providing open space to the proposed tenants. Other building materials include board foam concrete, cemented slab siding, AEP standing seam metal siding, and aluminum windows and accents. Now transitioning to 1040 Terabella, the site layout. The parcel is about 3.7 acres in site. Project site currently has 18 existing single-story storage buildings, and they are looking to demolish them to propose a 6-story, about 285,000 square feet building, and a 4-story, about 124,000 square foot building. Vehicular access to the site would be derived by way of Linda Vista and San Rafael Avenue. Here you see a view of the San Rafael and Linda Vista frontages and the overall design of the building, which is a modern building with a flat roof, proposing strong vertical and horizontal orange trim bands around the building. Other building materials include clear and spandrel glass, a mixture of concrete, cementous material, stucco, and metal panels. Here is the remaining process. The Environmental Planning Commission input at this study session will be forwarded to the City Council for consideration at a council study session tentatively scheduled for April 12th. Following the council study session, the project will continue through the development review and CEQA process and will return to the Environmental Planning Commission for a final recommendation to City Council. And here is the question that was highlighted in the report, which staff will highlight again, which is what we are looking for answers for. Does the EPC support the revised building heights in the current proposal pursuant to staff design modification recommendations or have any additional project design recommendations? With that, that concludes staff's presentation. I would like to highlight that both applicants are here for 1020 and 1040 Terabella, who can also help answer questions. And it is my understanding they would also like to share their own presentations. Thank you.
We have first from who are the two representatives from Alta and Public Storage? I think we have Randy and Tim's with Public Storage. Yeah, all right. Looks like we have Randy Suda from Alta Housing first. Can you...
Chair Cranston, staff did such a fabulous and in-depth job on that presentation. Both of us have a presentation ready to go, but we don't want to be repetitive and just reiterate what staff has already covered. So at this point, we're happy to answer any questions.
And Public Storage have any? Public Storage as well. We'll wait for EPC questions. Is that okay?
That's correct.
As a study session, the next item is comments from the public. So open up for public to speak. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. EPC clerk will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. Looks like we have 3 people. So why don't we do 3 minutes per speaker? Ms. Whitehill.
Okay, thank you. We'll get set up here. Okay, Tim, I'm gonna allow you to talk. I'm gonna share my screen really fast and then, okay. Tim, are you able to speak?
Yes.
Showing as me there. Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, quick question, please. I'm unfamiliar with the acronym FAR, F-A-R. What does that stand for, please?
It's a general term for density. It's called floor area ratio. It's a measure of how much stuff there is on a piece of land. So a bigger number means more stuff. A smaller number means less stuff.
What was the first word you said in the acronym?
Oh, it's floor area ratio.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Okay, Brian Miranda, go ahead. Brian, I believe you're muted. Okay, there you go.
This is Brian Miranda with Public Storage. I just wanted to say that I'm here for questions as well. For some reason, you all couldn't hear me as a speaker. Randy pretty much covered it, though. Staff did a great job.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Albert Jeans, who I believe has a presentation, which, Albert, I can share that presentation. And my understanding is that Albert will time himself. So Albert, you should be able to speak.
I just got it. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, Chair Cranston and Commissioners. My name is Albert Jeans. I'm a resident of Spelaine Estates, which is just a few hundred yards away from this project. First of all, I'd like to say some of my neighbors and I have been very supportive of the public storage part of this project ever since they contacted us probably some 4 years ago. And it's just too bad they got delayed and, you know, it's taken this long for them to get this far. My main comments are addressed towards the Alta housing project. Next slide, please. We're generally in favor of the project. I mean, I really like Alta housing. I like their existing projects. My main concern is, you know, how this project fits in with the rest of the area. And this is really I'm really addressing my remarks at the city because the city has to make this project work. As you can see from the zoning map, it's fairly isolated in the middle of this sort of aging industrial park, along with Shoreline Gateway off to the left. Next slide, please. And the main problem is, you know, although their rendition was very accurate, they didn't put in all the oversized vehicles and RVs that are now parked on Terabella as a result of the safe parking ordinance. And so there's very little street parking now. And as a result, I think we're very concerned about what parking will look like. Next slide, please. As you can see from this map, this site is not within walking distance of amenities like a supermarket, like a Safeway. It's 7/10 of a mile, 15 minutes. May not sound that bad, but if you actually walk it, it's not a very pleasant walk. It's on very busy streets, and I wouldn't want to be carrying a bag of groceries on this walk. Next slide, please. And I live very close to the existing San Verone Park apartments, which are 100% affordable. And I know there's this argument that people living in affordable housing don't always need, you know, 2 cars or even 1 car. But at least my experience has been, you know, they have a lot of cars there, and a lot of times it spills over in front of my house. And so with only less than 1 space per unit in Alta housing, I'm very worried about, you know, where all those cars are going to park. And the residents should be worried too. Next slide, please. The other thing I want to address is, I'm sorry, I haven't been timing, is parks. This is from the 2014 Parks and Open Space Report. We're in the Spelaine planning area. Currently, there's only 3 mini parks in this area. You can barely see them on the map that I've shown in green. I'm not counting school grounds because I don't consider those parks. A playing field is not a park. I'm sorry. And so currently we have a little over 3 acres, and the population in 2010 was almost 10,000. That's far below sort of the recommended 3 acres per 1,000 people. Now there's a park coming along, hopefully, with Cypress Point at 1.3 acres. But, you know, there's a whole slew of projects being proposed, and actually most of these are entitled in this area, as you can see in the lower part of the slide, and that totals, including Alta Terabella, 1,400 units, which is about 3,000 people. And we're only adding this 1.34 acre park at Cypress Point. And so the ratio is still, you know, about 0.4 acres per 1,000 residents, which is really, really low. And I think it's up to the city to do something about that. They really need to use some of these park and lieu fees and seriously acquire some property and build us some parks. Next slide, please. And so overall, Okay, on time. Okay, overall, we just have to make this a better area for residential if that's what we want. Thank you very much.
Didn't see the timer, so.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have the timer on.
Okay, it looks like we have Rick Spelaine next, and I'm going to go ahead and share the timer again. Okay. Rick, you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rick Spelaine. I'm a resident of Spelaine Estates. I have lived here since 2013. I'm very familiar with this neighborhood and the light industrial complex behind it. And I've seen it change over the years, and I've seen how San Verone Park has been used, and I've seen how the parking outside San Verone Park has been used. And it's a wonderful area. I think Mountain View is a wonderful area, and I'm very excited about people coming to live here. In fact, my father-in-law used to live in Alta Vista housing project over in East Bay. And I also agree with Albert that they are a good outfit, but I do not believe that the environment here is conducive to this project, primarily because of the complete lack of park space. And as other speakers have pointed out, loading in more residents and adding more residents to this area without proper park space being planned in right now as a condition for further building, which is the only way it can actually be done in practice, in reality, because that's the only way you have leverage to get it done, right? Is a disservice to the potential future residents that we want to welcome. So yes to future residents, yes to helping people who have a hard time with the cost of living in the Bay Area, which is tyrannical, but absolutely no to approving projects that aren't part of a sensible, holistic plan to make sure that everyone here is going to have a good quality of life, including children, including the elderly, including all the different types of people who we want to welcome to our community. And the only way it can be done is with a holistic, thought out plan where parks and housing go together hand in hand, not piecemeal one at a time, because if you follow the greedy algorithm on this one, we're going to create an area that no one wants to live in, even though we have lots of housing. And that's exactly what we want to avoid. That's what urban planning is, and that's what we were promised by this council and by these committees, and we expect it. And everybody who's going to live here will expect the same, and everyone will be held accountable for the planning or lack thereof. Thank you very much for hearing me out. Thank you very much for all the details on the project, and yeah, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, we have Edie Keating. Or Eddie?
Yes, Edie, thank you. People who choose to live at this future affordable housing site will make a choice to live there. And, you know, it has its ups and its downs. Some people might not choose to apply to live there if they think they'd be bothered by white noise from 101. And other people might think they would not want to live there if it's very important to them to have close, walkable access to many parks or to large parks. But there are a lot of people who they're at a stage of their life where they don't need excessive access to parks. And they may find this a really wonderful place. And so I think the lack of park space, people will sort themselves out. And the people who are able, and they'll be on a wait list, I assume, to get in here, to be lucky enough to live here, they'll have made that choice and they'll be happy with what's offered. So the biggest problem is our housing crisis and the lack of affordable housing. So here is a site where we can be adding affordable housing with and adding height, which I strongly support, and providing more units that will not impact any immediate neighbors directly. And if there are people in this affordable housing who have cars, they will be able to get in their car and drive to wherever, to their grocery store or to their favorite park. But I think people choose. And I think the benefits of adding this housing is going to be great. And people who get into new, well-designed, affordable housing, they feel like they've won the lottery. It's such a good feeling for them. And it lets them stay in the peninsula and Mountain View that they feel is their home. So I strongly support this project, and especially the affordable housing part of it. And the people who win the lottery and are able to move in will feel lucky. And I drove over there this afternoon, and I didn't see a lot of over parking Terabella, it does have many oversized vehicles parked on it, but people will work it out. And, I think many of the people there may choose to use bicycles instead of cars. Some will have cars. It will work out. I think this is a great site, and I hope you support it strongly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Silja Paymer. Go ahead.
Hi. Yeah. One of my concerns also was the lack of parks in that area. I don't think it means it shouldn't happen. I do think we need affordable housing. But yeah, maybe they'll feel like they won the lottery if they get into it, but wouldn't they feel like they won an even bigger jackpot if they also had a park for their kids to play at and to walk to and to enjoy? It just seems like I appreciate all the work that's been done, but like we have in the US, I think there is 10 feet square of public storage for each person that lives in the US, but I don't think that's true of parks in our city. So I would love to have as much park space in the city as we have public storage space. So I don't know how that could be factored in terms of planning or in terms of like some sort of land swap or something, but it does seem unfortunate to put people in a place that we wouldn't want to live ourselves. I just think everyone should be able to have space to be outside. All right, thank you.
Speaker.
Joan McDonald. Go ahead, Joan.
Hi, I'm speaking for myself and also on behalf of Advocates for Affordable Housing, which is a volunteer group in Mountain View residents that has been advocating for affordable housing since 1993, probably before some of you were born. So it's been an ongoing problem. I'm here to say, let's let this development go ahead. It isn't perfect, nothing is, but this is a place that is within easy walking distance of transit, as well as bicycling or driving or walking to Safeway and other retail spots. If you choose to recommend to the City Council to go ahead with this project, there will be changes. There will be discussion about parking. There will be discussion about the possibility of a park. And in the interim, the changes will improve the development, I'm sure. And in the meantime, the city may even come up with a plan for more parks in all of the places, including where I live in Montaloma, that are deficient in park space. Please vote or recommend to City Council that this development should go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Kevin Maul. Just 1 second.
Evening, EPC commissioners. My name is Kevin Maul, a resident of the city, and I too, like the previous speaker, am in support of this project. It's not very often you find 100% affordable projects built in recent years, given the land costs and given the difficulty in financing. So inherently, we have to treat this as a special opportunity for the city. Yes, there have been discussions about the kind of like the lack of parks in the area, but again, for the people who are the destined users of this project, their main concerns right now are just staying in the city completely. That they would have to, they're suffering every day from, you know, financial precarity about can they stay here for another year given kind of the economic conditions and the wage disparities in this area. And most of the time, we're just focusing on making sure they have enough for rent to stay in the city. Can't really enjoy parks if you have to figure out every waking hour of your day if you can make rent next month. That being said, I will say that I am favoring more parks, but at the end of the day, this is a decision for this particular project. With those discussions about greater opportunity to amenities can be bundled in more general questions about future general plan amendments or general plan revision. But for the question you've been given today is a question about will this affordable housing project continue on or die an early death? There has been references to the RVs, and inherently RVs are a symptom of a bad housing market, and 100% affordable housing project usually would fit them in because usually people would like space of their own. As previous studies in SF have shown that usually when you build these kind of projects, the people who are going to be in them are people from the area who are perhaps in RVs, perhaps overcrowded in wherever places they are, perhaps, you know, stuck with 4 roommates or something like that. And they deserve to have peace of mind in a place they can call home. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie Blues, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Kati, and I am a resident in Spelaine Estate, so I live very close to Terabella. Actually, we use in Terabella pretty much daily for access to 85 or 101, and then taking kids to, well, it used to be elementary, now we are driving to middle school. In general, this whole Terabella area is, you know, not as developed as, you know, as I would like to see. So I am very supportive of seeing just in general, just developing this area and making it nicer for the residents, for the future residents, for the current one. I want to mention that right now, as this project and like people were saying, and you know, as affordable housing, absolutely we need that. So I don't want to stop something that we definitely need in our city, but at the same time, this project, you know, it's not located next to Cuesta Park or in downtown Mountain View, so life quality is not, you know, the first place in a way, right? So I don't want to compromise on safety. This unit sounds like it's families, you know, size-wise. So kids gonna be living there and using the streets. So right now there is zero visibility biking or walking on Terabella. I don't feel this is properly designed right now. So when we add in more people, I just want them when projects being approved, I want them to be considered not just project at a time independently, but in this whole area, there are right now a neighborhood existing just to connect and make it safe and pleasant for people to live wherever their house is, price where it was affordable or not. We all want to make sure people live comfortably and safely. So I encourage everybody who also supports this project to actually drive and walk this area and see what this area is lacking, and understand that as the residents or as neighbors to this project, we want the best for them and for ourselves, really. Really, the traffic right now, or pre-COVID actually, was pretty awful. And I don't want to just rely on future that, yeah, it's going to work out. I want that to be considered with the project. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Emily Ann Ramos, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hi, my name is Emily Ann Ramos, and I was debating how I wanted to approach. Oh, sorry. I guess the previous commenter didn't get muted. But as I was thinking about this, and I wanted to be really angry because it's a 100% affordable housing project, and like there's always going to be something that makes it not perfect for someone to come out and say, not in my backyard. And it's a frustrating thing. But I'm going to take a different approach. I hear the concerns of the residents nearby, but what I would like to argue is that these are not exclusive things to each other. We can build the homes that we desperately need, especially those who are low income. And we can fight for better bike lanes, fight for better parks, more parks. We can fight for the things that make Mountain View wonderful. Because I always love this quote by Supervisor Samidian, that Mountain View is a small town with a can-do attitude. I don't think we're as small anymore, but comparatively to many other cities, we still are. But we don't have to view these things as mutually exclusive. We can still fight for things that make the quality of life of our city better. And they don't have to stop development to do that. So we can get this much wonderful affordable housing that's being currently proposed there. And we can fight for these items that are much better. So I asked that the EPC move this project forward to council with no reductions of height or homes, and continue the fight and do what you do to make our city better. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, and Alex Brown, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Alex Brown. I live up in North Bayshore, just north of the 101 from this project. I've been down to Terabella quite a few times. I still miss Fiesta Del Mar. Fiesta Del Mar too is, also good, but not the same. This project looks nice, looks good. I would be happy to work with the new residents after they've moved in to advocate for completing the Terabella visioning process and really bringing life to the Terabella neighborhood, making a complete neighborhood. I think that it's something that council has already started, that they want to do, that they have not had adequate staffing and capacity to accomplish, but I do think is a very doable thing. I do think that we can have parks. I think we can have retail. I think that we can have housing in that area and make it a complete neighborhood that brings more life to the city and that also brings homes to people that need them. And this is step one, which is great. As for the question at hand about the revised building heights, I think that if anything, they should be taller. Every time that you build something, you're investing, and the bigger you build it now, the more homes you have, the more capacity you have, the longer a life you will have for the building, the more people you can help. One thing I would like to bring up that hasn't been mentioned by other commenters is a long-term design for the public storage building to see if there's any way that we can set it up to be converted at some point into housing or other uses, if that is doable. There's a parking garage up in North Bayshore that is part of the Google project that is designed with the ability to convert it at some future point into housing. And I love the idea of being able to not have to tear down and rebuild every time, but to invest once and then reap dividends for years to come. So yes to housing, yes to this project, also yes to parks. I want more parks. Let's do it. I'm walking distance from this place. I'd love more parks here. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I don't believe we have any more public speakers for this item.
Well, we're bringing it back to the commission. Before we start questions, I'd like to take a quick poll of the members, whether you've had a chance to meet with the applicant or visited the site prior to this meeting. So let's kind of go around. Commissioner Clark.
Yes, I visited the site back in 2020. I didn't visit it this time around, but and I've met with the applicant a couple of times over the years, including this week.
Commissioner Hermeyer.
Likewise, I met with the applicant and I visited the site this week.
Commissioner Nunez.
I had a meeting with the applicant. Wish I could say I visited the site this week, but pretty familiar with the area.
Yeah. Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yeah, I stopped while I drove by, but I have not met with the applicant.
Commissioner Dempsey.
I have met with the applicant and I have been by the site many times.
Vice Chair Ian.
I have been by the site many times in the past, not this week, and I also did see the presentation by the applicant.
And I visited the site and met with the applicant. That will open up to EPC questions. Actually, before I want to take a quick straw poll, the way staff presented the questions, they kind of lumped everything into a single question. My own sense was it may be easier to kind of capture the feedback if we collect feedback about the two separately, so that it's more clear if there's feedback that's unique to public storage or unique to the Alta housing site. Is that okay with commissioners if we take that approach? I'm seeing head nods, thumbs up. Okay. So let's open up the questions first. The first item that was presented was the Alta housing. And I mean, actually questions can be about anything, but questions first. So Commissioner Gutierrez.
Thank you, Chair. So I have a quick question. Is it possible to go back to the presentation on the housing so we can see the picture of it as I asked the question?
Yes, definitely. Do you want the aerial view showing the entire frontage of the structure?
The street view, if possible.
Okay.
Awesome. So here's my question. When we look at the building, it looks like there's green space in the middle, and it looks like that area is going to be used for the persons that will be living there and the families. So my question is, if this is going to be a gated community, is there thought of thinking of maybe having this space also be open to the community, and instead of it being a gated community, have it be open access for that park area, either during certain times of the day or the week, or just in general?
So that's a great question. That's not been spoken with the applicant as far as the that third floor courtyard area there, private open space. They are calling it private open space. Staff would like to highlight that there is also going to be benches. And if you're looking at this image at your bottom right-hand corner, That's going to be an entry plaza. There is going to be benches, bike racks, and it's going to be paved different. It should also activate that frontage and work as a as an activating feature and as a passive recreational area. But pertaining to the other question, that's something that has not been spoken about to the applicant, but glad to bring that up with the applicant, or maybe the applicant can further elaborate on that if because they are here today.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
D'Souza, do you want to respond to that, or?
Sure. Appreciate the thought, and as staff pointed out, yeah, we in our projects like Lot 12 and this one, we have tried to incorporate a publicly accessible portion of the project. In this case, it is the publicly accessible plaza that is on the ground floor there near the corner of San Rafael and Terabella. I think it would be difficult to get access, public access up to that podium level plaza. You would need to walk through the building and the secured areas of the building in order to get up there. There's also, depending on how much usage you get, it can be difficult to legally fund it through state funding sources, affordable housing funding sources, and the low-income housing tax credit program. It is a space that we are quite proud of. It's nearly a quarter acre of open space on that podium level, so it approaches the size of some of the city's mini parks. It was done very intentionally, trying to create a great communal area and a great open space feature for our residents. Would love to be able to share it with the public. I think that would be difficult.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Hairmeyer.
Thank you. Randy, another question for you while we have you. Can you talk a little bit about, I know the state has changed its funding notification cycle and moving to once per year cycle instead of multiple. And I wonder if you could comment a little bit about how that change might affect this project.
Commissioner, you're absolutely correct that at least this year the state has moved towards what they're calling a super NOFA process, whereby you have one deadline for a consolidated group of state affordable housing funding sources. What that does is that it makes it incumbent upon the projects being entitled in time for the affordable housing provider to prepare its applications for the funding cycle. If you miss the funding cycle, then you're delayed an entire calendar year to initiate the project. So the state hasn't released its timeline for the 2023 funding cycle. Assuming it's roughly the same as this year, we would need to get this project entitled by the end of the year or early next year at the very latest. We anticipate that the NOFA will be released in the February timeframe, February 2023, with the applications due in spring of 2023.
Vice Chair Yin.
Oh, this is a question for staff. I was wondering if you guys could remind us when the Terabella visioning process is slated for?
So the Terabella visioning process is, my understanding, was brought forward to City Council, and they elected not to move forward with it, as they prefer to see a precise plan for the area. And possibly Planning Manager Williams can probably highlight more information on that.
Yes, I think Edgar covered all the pertinent information. Council did have staff prepare a draft vision plan for the Terabella area, and when it came for kind of final adoption, they decided to not adopt the vision document, and that it was more appropriate to consider a precise plan for the area in the future. The
consideration of a precise plan is not currently part of staff's work plan, but it is still out there on the horizon for someday.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dempsey.
Yeah, I hope we at some point soon have a conversation about the value of a precise plan here. I mean, I noticed with great interest there's a lot of buildings going up in this neighborhood, the big ones. This is a neighborhood in transitioning from industrial into residential. That's a big change. We've already heard from some of the folks today that we have insufficient park and open space in that larger neighborhood, and we're going to be adding a lot of people to it. To me, and I readily admit that I'm new to this, but that seems like having a discussion, a real one about a precise plan seems appropriate and perhaps timely as well. So I hope that's something that we all kind of talk about a little bit more at some point. Although that wasn't even why I put my hand up. I had one question for staff and then one question for Randy. The question for staff: when is the parking study supposed to be complete?
So the parking studies it was added to the scope of work for the CEQA process to be done by the consultants. So that would likely be done once the scope of work is officially in contract. Overall, it's probably going to be an 8-month process, but the study session would likely be done obviously before the completion of the entire CEQA process. It's not yet started. It is part of the scope of work, so I don't have an exact date for you, but within those 8 months of officially executing the contracts to start the scope of work for the CEQA work.
Okay, so sometime in the next, probably in about 8 months-ish, that's what we're thinking?
Within those 8 months, correct.
Okay, cool, thank you. And a question for Randy, or maybe just I want to put a flag in something. For me, ensuring that the residents, and particularly residents that have minors, that really good internet access is critical, because this is something that we've seen has been a problem for a lot of young people during COVID, because they had to go, as I told Randy, they have to go park in front of Burger King to get reasonable Wi-Fi so they can do their homework. I'll ask this question again when the day comes that we do this properly comes before EPC, but I'm very interested in knowing in advance kind of how Alta has prepared to make sure that there's like good, really fast Wi-Fi in that building. Because again, I think that that's really going to be important for taking care of the young people that end up being in that building. So that's a question I'll ask again. You don't have to answer it now because I'm not sure that it's probably too early to say. I just wanted to flag that I think that that's really important to talk about. And I hope that we can talk in greater detail about it later on when this comes back in front of EPC. That was it.
We have noted your question, Commissioner, and it's on the list.
Commissioner Nunez.
Yeah, quick question for Andy. To what extent is that bike shop going to be publicly accessible? I imagine they wouldn't turn down customers, and or like kind of made noticeable that it is publicly accessible if it is.
At this point, we haven't, it is positioned that it could be publicly accessible. We haven't made a decision. We haven't really designed or anticipated that it would be open to the public. There are, again, limitations on the use of those state housing funds and tax credits for publicly accessible space. In the case of Lot 12, where we are incorporating publicly accessible tenant spaces into the building, the city is stepping in to essentially subsidize those, the cost of those spaces, acknowledging that state funds and tax credits can't be used to pay for it. So that would have to be a conversation we'd have with the city about their interest in subsidizing that space for public access.
Sounds good. And that would be facing the public right of way, right?
It faces Terabella.
All right. Thank you.
Question for Edgar, Stephanie. What you said the CEQA process has not been started. Is that close? 8 months seems like it would get it close to the timeline that Mr. Suda mentioned that things need to be approved. So are we close to getting that started?
Yeah, great question. We are definitely within reach of getting that complete soon. We are on updating the scope of work. I'm expecting a return on that scope sometime next week, and then we'll, assuming everything on there is ready to go, we'll just get payment from the applicants on that to officially initiate the contract, which will take a few weeks before, again, assuming the scope of work is ready to go and the applicants are ready to pay, it could hypothetically be done in a few weeks.
All right. There's no kind of general questions. Let's look at the questions that staff raised regarding first one. When we talk about 1020, which is the Alta housing project. Commissioner Clark.
Do you mind if I address the project generally, or do you want me to just focus on the housing piece of it?
If you've got general comments, I just want to make sure that we clearly capture feedback relative to the two. If there's other stuff that goes beyond that, we can capture that as well. So I'll take them.
Okay. Well, I'll probably address both, and that way I don't have to beleaguer the points later. I was supportive of the original gatekeeper. I remember it coming through, and how it's evolved. I think it's evolved quite a bit. I think for the better. And looking at the differences between what was proposed in the previous iteration or the most recent iteration compared to now, I don't have any issues with the revised building height on either the storage parcel or the affordable housing parcel. I think the design modifications that staff has identified for both make sense to me. And I don't have any additional design recommendations. I think what staff identified makes the most sense. And having met with the applicant, it sounds like they're prepared to address a lot of those issues as they move along. The only concern that I originally had that I think changed from the last time I saw it was the phasing of the project in terms of the storage and phase 1 versus phase 2. And I had most of those concerns were allayed in a meeting with the applicant where we talked about what happens if I think the affordable housing will get built regardless, but there's the phase 2 of the storage that it's a longer entitlement period, and so it's conceivable that may get built much later, or maybe even not at all. And so we talked about what that would look like if that second phase weren't built, and I was reassured that there isn't going to be anything there in that scenario that would I think detract from either the neighborhood, especially the Terabella street frontage side, or any views or impacts to the residents of the affordable housing project. So that was my primary concern, which has been addressed. So I think overall, I'm supportive of this moving forward with the revised building heights in the current proposal, and supportive of staff's design modification recommendations. For the benefit of everyone, in case it's helpful with respect to precise plans, parks and planning and all those other things, I very distinctly remember some of those meetings. We actually, the council was interested in pursuing a precise plan in the Terabella area precisely because we were getting a number of gatekeepers for the area. And we, at the time, thought it might make a lot of sense to sort of pause on some of those that weren't necessarily related to affordable housing, and reach out to the community and see if we could do a precise plan process, or at minimum a visioning. And the community at the time, the neighbors, the residents of the Terabella neighborhood came out in force, dead set against a precise plan specifically, which I think a number of us were surprised at, because that's the that's where you get down to the, this is the document that governs where the parks are going to go long term, where the amenities are going to go, how the traffic is going to flow, whether we tie jobs to housing, all those things. And so to, I think, accommodate those requests to not get that specific, we did the visioning process, which I think, added a lot of value, but ultimately wasn't adopted in favor of maybe revisiting a precise plan at some point down the road. But the and sentiment in the neighborhood may have changed. But at least at the time, there was very little appetite in the neighborhood for a precise plan specific or a specific plan, because I think it felt. I think they felt at the time that it would lock them into additional development and wouldn't be as flexible, and they would prefer to review projects in a more case-by-case basis. So that's where all that landed. Hopefully, the idea of a precise plan can be revisited in the future, because regardless about how you feel about where that might lead to, it's ultimately, I think, better to plan out the parks and amenities and all these other things so that the city can have a full-blown strategy around how much money it needs to stock away for park funds, which parcels it might want to target for acquisition ultimately. But until we are able to do something more comprehensive, I think that would be difficult. So I would encourage those in the residents of Terabella, if you're interested in doing a full plan of where residential should go, where commercial should go, where parks should go, and tying all those things together, a precise plan. It takes a while to do, but it's the way that we plan those things. So hopefully at some point there will be enough appetite to do that again, and the staff resources to do it, but that will ultimately be up to the council and the residents. So I just wanted to provide that background that we had looked at those things. It just didn't work out at the time, and we sort of basically punted, to put it bluntly.
So commissioner feedback on the Alta housing project. Commissioner Meyer.
I'm comfortable with the revised building heights. Some of the design recommendations, I chatted about this in the meeting with the applicant. I mean, on the rear side of the building that's facing public storage, I appreciate the feedback and wanting to make it look as nice as possible. But if that in any way delays the project or adds to the cost, I think those were the areas where I had a little bit of concern, just because there isn't really an audience or stakeholder looking at the building materials on the rear side. So I'd rather have that focus on the street frontage.
Mr. Dempsey?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Harrymeyer said it really well, and I agree with her. For the height requirements, I'm fine with the way we've done the height. In fact, I like it that the Alta Vista building actually gets to pop up a little bit higher than the storage facility between it and the freeway. The other kind of generalized concern I have about it gets back to the design changes and the design ideas we have. 100% affordable building of this size, that's kind of special to me. That's kind of a big deal when opportunities like this can pop up. And I actually think that the land swap between Alta Vista and public storage is actually kind of clever, and I applaud them for it. And I definitely want to see this happen, in part because it's very much in keeping with the direction, I think, of the City Council. Plus, it's a good and noble thing to do. My hope would be that when we look at potential further design changes, that we are being mindful of additional cost. I think it's easy to recommend stuff when you don't have to pay for it, and that is part of our job to sort of improve the design of things. But I just hope that we're really mindful about cost, because I would hate to see the viability of this challenged in any way. Because again, 100% affordable building of this size, that's a big deal, and I think Mountain View wants it and would benefit from it. And I hope that we just sort of treat it gingerly and not impose costs that we don't need to.
Thank you. We have no other hands. I'll jump in here. Like Commissioner Dempsey and Commissioner Heermeyer, in general, I like the design, and I'm okay with the broad language of the staff feedback. But I would go maybe a step farther and say that design changes should be cost neutral. If we look at changes to the design, they need to be done in a way that allows Alta Housing to make the changes in a way that's cost effective. Nonprofit developers have a built-in cost disadvantage. The state of California and the federal government have put in programs that require the construction to be done at prevailing wages, and that's not something that's true of for-profit developers. So they start with it's the law. I have no problem with the law, but it does create a situation where they're starting they have a higher cost in the construction side. And so we need to be very, very careful as we look at design elements as to whether those changes are something that can be done in a way that allows Alta Housing to do it in an expense neutral way. I would agree with Commissioner Heermeyer. Doing a lot of work on a wall that's going to be 25 feet away from a storage building doesn't seem like a good investment. Doesn't seem like if you're going to make changes to the design, do it in the areas that are more visible. So I'm open to the idea of the design changes. I'm okay with the height, but I really think staff needs to be very conscious of doing things in a way that's expense neutral for Alta Housing, so that the project remains feasible going forward, and that we try to be very conscious of that. And I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of the pretty to make sure that it still becomes financially viable to move ahead. So that's, I really think we need to be cognizant of that. Commissioner Nunez?
Thank you, Chair Cranston. Yeah, so I'm gonna skip a little bit ahead to the portion of that public storage building as well. And the reason why is because I also agree wholeheartedly with the notion, or even that specific phrasing of cost neutral when it comes to this project. 100% affordable, super special. You don't see this come around too often, but I do want to kind of convey a similar thinking that I believe ought to extend to that public storage building. Without taking credit for this, I think one thing I heard is, we ought to be mindful as well about not trying to create the Getty Museum of public storage sites, because these are in fact tied. And so whereas, yes, design is something that, personally, I think is very important. I definitely don't denigrate or overlook the importance of having something that is appropriately and well designed. I also think that, given the special circumstances, the last thing that, personally, and I believe as a commissioner who took an oath to do whatever I think is best for the city, I think it would be a very bad outcome if, kind of rehashing design over and over on either of these portions would lead to the missing of that, target date that I know Alta Housing needs to be very sensitive to when it comes to being able to apply for and gather funding. So in whatever form or fashion that, we as an advisory body are able and or capable of conveying, not just to council, but, and maybe even, staff, that, this is a very special project, and, it is one where timing is extremely critical, not even accounting for all the whole supply chain wonkiness with increased costs that, could happen when it comes to materials. I believe it's critical for us to be able to convey, a little bit more of a sense of urgency around not getting too bogged down in some of these design parameters. Other than that, height buildings, totally fine. And I think, yeah, that's kind of where I'm standing on that.
We haven't heard from Commissioner Yin. Vice Chair Yin. Yep.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I really do appreciate the two entities coming together and doing that land donation or land swap. Yes, providing the land so that they could front Terabella, the residential could front Terabella. I think that was very clever and very much appreciate the coordination and cooperation between the two. And I think maybe staff had a hand in that, directing that change as well, so thank you. I am in agreement with the floor heights. I'm okay with that. Yeah, it is unfortunate we didn't get a precise plan that is exactly where you determine where the parks are, and I know the parking will be looked at, so that was a question I had in the back of my head as well. I would say the public storage, design-wise, to me is okay. It's storage, and I think compared to what was there before, it is dramatically better. And I don't know, this may speak to my ignorance in the financing, but I would go ahead and look at how the Alta housing project could be designed a little better. I think there's still a little bit work to be done in the aesthetics, and if everyone's okay with it, and council says okay, if the money that public storage was going to use to further design their end, if they could chuck it on over and help Alta housing so that the frontage along Terabella could be improved, I think that would be an all-around win-win. Just my 2 cents. But otherwise, I am in favor of staff recommendations.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Thank you, Commissioner Chair. I'm so sorry. I've been sick the last few days, so I'm apologize. I like the recommendations by the staff. I'm fine with public storage as is. It's public storage, and the redesign looks pretty more up to date. Right? I'd like to see if it's possible to look at the facade, the front part of the housing project, look a little different, aesthetically speaking, to make it. Right now, it looks just too. It's modern, great, but for me, it looks a little unwelcoming, just a little bit. I'm not used to that type of facade at the front. Hoping that might be looked at too, so that it could be a little bit more friendly that way. And then trees in terms of public storage. I'm not sure if I read it correctly or not, but I'd like to see a little bit more trees if possible, especially on that lot, because it looks like we've got something going on that's a little bit better at the housing project. But I also understand, and I think this is the most important thing, that when we look at these projects and we understand that partnerships are key. So these two being able to work out this type of plan and project, again, looks like to me an example of what others can also do in that same area and around the city of Mountain View. And I think that that should be applauded, and that should be encouraged. And hopefully by us being able to pass this along and improve this part of the process, City Council can then chime in and do what they do to make this even better project for both parties and for the city. Thanks.
I think I heard kind of consensus on the heights overall. Commissioners Clark, Nunez, Yin, and Gutierrez have kind of spoken about public storage. So can I go back to Commissioner Dempsey, Commissioner Haymeyer, I guess myself on the public storage? Did you have any comments on the design recommendations that staff is running there in that approach? Commissioner Dempsey is
nothing new.
Okay. Commissioner Haymeyer?
I am just impressed that a storage facility can look at, I mean, it doesn't look like a storage facility. It looks like a commercial or a building that is, I think it's been really thoughtfully done. I'm not an architect like some of our colleagues on the commission, but I am impressed by what they put forward and the attempt to match it with the new Google buildings down the street and draw from that palette, and also recognize that they're residential neighbors, and just know that this is not, this isn't a typical partnership, and really appreciate the collaboration that's happened between Public Storage and Alta Housing to get it this far. So all good on my end.
And I guess maybe it's a little bit of what Commissioner Yin said and Commissioner Nunez. I think the design for the public storage site is fine right now. Doing a lot more to make it even better, quite frankly, I don't think is a misplaced effort. I actually like Commissioner Yin's idea that if there was little things here and there that they could save that might actually contribute a little bit more money to Alta Housing to work on the housing development, I would be all in favor of that. But I don't really see the design has progressed substantially. I think it looks quite well. I'm actually I don't really care about impressing people driving around 101 at the exit, because most of the time they're just worried about the highway and getting off right there. It's an off ramp and they're just trying to get home. So I'm really not worried about making the public storage look even better than it does. I think I'm comfortable with the design right now, and I don't see a lot of need to do a lot more with it. So I think let me make sure I kind of capture this. So I think on the Alta Housing project, I heard pretty much across the board support for staff continuing to work with the applicant on the design, but I heard 4 commissioners specifically call out trying to manage the expectations on costs associated with that. And that was Commissioner Haymeyer, Commissioner Dempsey, Commissioner Nunez, and myself being just concerned that that the cost is taken into consideration during those. I didn't hear that from Commissioners Clark, Yin, or Gutierrez. But overall, general support for looking at the design. On public storage, is that, not seeing any like people shaking their head, that's not what they said. On public storage, I think people were comfortable with the heights. I think I've heard several of the commissioners say that they were comfortable with the design. I think Commissioner Gutierrez and Commissioner Clark didn't necessarily say, basically said support the staff report, which would be continue to do more work. Whereas my sense from the other 5 commissioners, correct me wrong, was that they're kind of satisfied with the design as it is right now and would not necessarily put more into that. Is that fair? Yes, I think so. So it was Commissioner Hamler.
With a deference to staff, I mean, if it's not a significant amount of work, whatever the staff recommendation is to improve it, absolutely for, but I think I would rather see effort go to the housing project.
So on the main part of your question, Edgar and Stephanie, do you feel like you have feedback? Need? Nod, yes, okay. Then were there any other general items that commissioners wanted to bring up going forward? That was kind of the last open element of the question. Any other kind of general feedback on the project overall that want to provide feedback to staff? I didn't hear anything really come out significantly. Commissioner Nunez?
Yeah, just a quick clarification from my understanding of the consensus there. Are we suggesting that that phrasing of managing expectations around design, or are we being a little more prescriptive around being very conscious of, like, I think you might have brought it up, this concept of cost neutrality? I just wanted to make sure if one of those conveyed the group consensus more than the other, then I would absolutely be very in favor of kind of specifically saying, we're hopeful that any design changes, or strongly hopeful that any design changes will be cost neutral to the project.
I didn't hear that from Commissioner Hammer, and Commissioner Dempsey both raised being conscious of the implications of any design changes on cost. They didn't make the. Maybe I'll go back to them. Commissioner Hairmeyer, Commissioner Dempsey, are you the idea of it being cost neutral or just managing the cost expectations? Because that's what I had heard. So is that you'd like them to manage the cost expectations, but not necessarily requiring it to be cost neutral. Is that fair, Commissioner Hairmeyer, Commissioner Dempsey?
Yes, I just don't know how much analysis actually happens to be able to say the cost of one material versus another on the staff side. I don't know, Stephanie, or if you can comment on that. That seems like a different level of detail rather than a signal saying, to the extent possible, design features should be done with cost concerns front of mind or something along those lines.
So we work quite a bit on actually, in certainly the last 5 years, quite a few affordable housing projects, and staff is very much aware of the design and cost implications and are very sensitive to that, as well as the DRC.
And that's good enough for me. I don't need to say cost neutrality at that point.
Commissioner Dempsey, is that my sense was you're in the same position as Commissioner Hairmeyer.
Yeah, I'm mindful that staff knows a lot more about design than I do. I'm a lawyer, not an architect, so this is not my specialty, and I know it. So I'm not looking to tie their hands. I think my role here is to kind of speak to high-level values, and my high-level value is I care about not putting additional cost for little additional value, because I care about the feasibility. And I think saying that ought to be enough. I don't want to start tying the hands of staff. I'm not sure that I feel like I'm not comfortable doing that now. I can tell you that.
But that's what I had understood originally, Commissioner Nunez, is that's what I had, that four of the commissioners would like to see as the DRC and staff work with the applicant, work with Alta Housing, to be conscious of costs, but not necessarily the requirement of cost neutrality. That's what I had heard, and that's
super awesome.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, Vice Chair Yin, are you still on? Are you on that, or are you going to look back at
this is a
public
different
storage
thing altogether? Sorry.
That's right.
Is that okay?
Other items.
Just a very, very quick question, because it's not related to this development. However, one member from the public had brought up the street and wanting it to be safe. And would you be able to enlighten us as to where the opportunities might be in the future to make perhaps a slow street, or just look at the design of the street so that it is as safe as it can be because we're turning into from an industrial area to a more walkable, hopefully residential neighborhood in time? Is my question not clear? Sorry. I was just wondering from staff's point of view, because I know that Public Works deals with the street. So if we're going to look at slow streets or, any aspect of the streets and making it a little bit safer, at what point do we take that into consideration? Is that part of the precise plan that would happen in the future?
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Eric Anderson, Advanced Planning Manager. I'm not aware of any Public Works projects to change, say, street dimensions in this area or anything like that to make it a slower street in the ways that you might be describing. We do have, I know Public Works has several programs for things like managing speeding, things like that. And I don't know all the details of those, but they do, kind of traffic management in residential neighborhoods. I think, as you were saying, a precise plan is a good opportunity to set street design standards, because that way you're looking at the streets in the area as a system rather than street by street. but I'm not aware of any specific public works projects on this street.
Okay, thank you.
So I can just add, and this was part of the EPC questions, is that there is a Terabella Avenue bikeway feasibility study project that is part of the current CIP, and that has not started yet, but it is in the process of being started.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Item number 3 in the answers to my questions. So, Vice Chair Gian, on the number 3 in the questions, first, the response to the questions.
Oh, number 3. Okay, yeah, I'll take a look again.
Commissioner Hammond.
Just one closing point on this, there's a lot of urgency to this project. I think if the state is really doing one cycle of NOFA funding, I just really hope that we're able to keep this project on track and see it move forward in a timely way, because waiting a whole extra year to access that funding window would just compound the housing crisis we're in. And I think it's pretty heartbreaking to see the increase in our neighbors who are vehicle dwellers that have relocated to this area, and the faster that we can get projects like this built and just add to capacity, there's just such great urgency. So I hope we're able to keep to the schedule that staff outlined earlier in the presentation.
I'll second that motion. Other comments from commissioners about the general? Okay. Then we will close this item. I could just double check, Stephanie and Edgar, you've got what you need?
We do. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Right. So we will then move to, so I didn't hear any kind of broad items across the entire commission. You guys can factor those additional comments into your items, but I didn't hear anything that we would have to necessarily take a straw poll on the things outside of the questions. But we will move on to commission staff announcements, update requests, and committee reports. No action will be taken on these items by the commission. I guess I'll put them on the spot. It's my understanding that Commissioners Dempsey and Gutierrez had the chance to go to the Planning Commissioners Academy last week. Any insights, revelations, things you'd like to share with the rest of the commission that bring that knowledge back to us? Mr. Dempsey.
I'm happy to go first. It actually was really interesting. And it was the first conference I'd been to in 2 years. So it took a little getting used to being in a big room like that with people with their masks off. But so quickly, the kind of the 4 big things that I would point out that I think I learned was much more about us. Actually, I learned a lot about planning commissions and not quite so much about content. First, it's not really an academy. It's more like an annual conference, because most of the people I ran into had been planning commissioners for 3 years or more. It wasn't just the newbies. In fact, I ran into not very many brand new people. So I was a little surprised by that. Another thing I noticed and was surprised by, because I didn't expect it, is some cities send delegations. They don't just send the new commissioners, they send like a lot of commissioners. So it becomes more like a retreat for the commission. And I envied them that, because they could take over a whole table and they'd sit there and kibitz, and I'm like the one guy from a different city. So I thought that was really interesting. I did see there was a lot of I did not realize this, but there is so much practice variation between cities when it comes to planning commissions. There's some that are 5 members, there's some that are 11. They have different sets of powers. Some are district appointed and some are at large appointed like we are. There's so much diversity in how planning commissions are put together. I absolutely did not expect that. I was really kind of shocked by that. And they have different approaches to talking to applicants. There was one guy I met who literally will not talk to anyone. He treats it like being a judge. So he reads the staff report, he takes in nothing from the outside world. And then there's other people who talk to everybody. I did not expect that. So the final takeaway really is kind of comparing what I know here with us to what I saw with some other cities. You know, we are, I think, pretty friendly to housing and to growth in Mountain View. There's a lot of cities that were much more skeptical of it. And I thought that was interesting. They didn't have nearly the housing struggles that we do. I also think that we are really pretty open and communicative with the public, and I like it that we are like that. We take in a lot of input, and I think that that's really important. And lastly, I definitely heard stories of like fights on commissions where there's factions, and there was one city where they had the entire commission fired all at once. It was amazing. It was amazing to hear about it. And it really made me appreciate how collegial this commission is. And I think that's very much to the credit of our leadership, our chairs, and really the good people that got picked for this. The city picks good people. And I really love it, how well we get along, how collegial it is, how cooperative and collaborative we are. I really value that. I really do. And it made me appreciate Mountain View Environmental Planning Commission all the more, having get to see all the different other ways that people do it. So thank you to the city of Mountain View for sending me.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Hey, so how do I follow that? I mean, come on. No, well said. I mean, Commissioner Dempsey, I didn't even know that you were there. If you were, I should have asked. That way we could have been able to have lunch or something. But I want to echo a lot of the things that you mentioned. And I don't want to, take too much time and repeating those same points, but I agree with Commissioner Dempsey wholeheartedly on that. But the one thing I kept hearing from people that I would meet is, "Oh, you're from Mountain View. You guys get the good projects," over and over again. And I think that's just because we're at the forefront of, unfortunately, where the crisis is. Right? You've got everything intersecting all at once: growth, livability, and then you've got cost of living, and then housing, which is a huge issue in parks. But the one thing that I heard over and over again from other commissioners that I met was that we had, at least in their opinion, more of a chance to do a positive difference in their area because of the issues that we face. And so that told me that in many other parts of California, depending where you're from, the committees can only do so much based on the issues that they face at that time. So what I did learn was what not to do, right? How not to violate the Brown Act, right? How not to be a facetious, member of the committee. How not to interject and cut off other people's ideas. How not, it's more, it reinforces more and more of what Commissioner Dempsey said, that we get along and that we're able to agree to disagree, try and problem solve, and then move on the next project and the next project. And I think that's, if I took anything away from the academy, it's that it's just like on the school board. If we can agree to disagree and keep an eye on that prize and go towards that prize more and more ever, after each and every single meeting with the help of staff, that's how we can best advise City Council to create the best Mountain View that we can, And it sounds kind of dorky to say it that way, but it was great to be among other people who got this excited about Planning Commission, right? So it made me feel more normal than not. So thank you for the opportunity to go and to represent Mountain View, and I appreciate that very much.
Make me jealous. I attended last year and it was all video, so I didn't get any of the interaction with other cities. So maybe I'll sign up next year if they let me stick around. So thank you both. Did you have Commissioner Dempsey? You still have your hand up. Did you have another item you wanted to bring up? Okay. Any other announcements? Feedback from commissioners, staff? Eric, I noticed that the next meeting isn't in the first meeting in April.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that. Yeah, we are canceling the April 6th meeting. So that's that announcement. I also wanted to let you guys know, as quick as I can, the summary of council direction at the housing element meeting at the beginning of March. So council supported staff's inventory, sites inventory methodology. They wanted us to add the shopping centers where the general plan already allows residential, and then kind of make a judgment on whether they're in the sites inventory or the back pocket or neither. For other shopping centers, the South Drive area around the El Camino Hospital, churches, government sites, And then obviously just to continue to proactively reach out and collaborate with property owners. They also directed us to remove the target site from the inventory based on the letter from the property owner. They also indicated support for the other back pocket areas that we identified, the Transit Center, Village Center, Smallville Boulevard. They had some various comments on the draft goals and policies. In general, asking us to look at the wording to be more concrete and less aspirational, but various other comments as well. They also indicated support for staff to explore additional policies or programs. For example, to reduce parking requirements for 100% affordable housing, adopt a local replacement and first right of return ordinance or policy, support efficiency studios, and things like community land trusts and other opportunities to purchase. And then, of course, the possible affordable housing overlay. And then council also supported staff's recommendation to study targeted updates to the non-conforming section of the code to address non-conforming densities. Last night, there was a council meeting. They approved the housing element and general plan annual reports. They also approved the SB9 amendments. I think with one minor change based on my conversation with Brittany, who was there. If I get this wrong, Brittany, feel free to jump in, about changing the width of access roads to rear lots. In addition, of course, they, as usual, continued to adopt resolutions that these meetings can be virtual. I do have an update on that. I talked to the clerk today, and basically what's going to happen is the city is looking at a hybrid model potentially for city council. And then if once the council decides to stop adopting these resolutions, all the commissions would have to go back in person. But we are not looking at right now a virtual element for that. So it wouldn't be hybrid. It would just be going back in person the way things used to be. But that would be at such time as council stops adopting these resolutions, which we don't know when that's going to be. So just consider this to be virtual for the time being, and I'll keep you all posted on how that may change. The question at the beginning of the meeting, when is this the project at the Milk Pail site going to be coming back? That's actually tentatively scheduled for the April 20th EPC meeting and May 24th City Council. So that's actually the next EPC meeting that we're going to be having. Again, tentatively scheduled, but that's the plan. Also, I sent out an email to the commission about potentially scheduling a summer special meeting to review the housing element update environmental impact report, the draft EIR. I did get response from a quorum of folks, so we are going to be scheduling that meeting at a future date. So please put it on your calendars, August 3rd. We will be formally scheduling that at a future date, but we are looking at an August 3rd EPC meeting to review the draft EIR for the housing element. Those are my announcements. Thank you.
Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Chair. Hey, I have a quick question for the team. And if it's already been answered, by all means, please let me know, right? But I remember earlier on in our meetings, Alex had brought up the question of if there was a way possible to reach out to the family that was affected by moving out over at Escuela and Latham. And that the response was that the staff would look into it to see if they were able to reach the family in order to see if they could qualify for some benefits. Was that ever resolved?
It's a good question. I don't have the answer to that, but I will look into it and let you all know.
Thank you.
Okay. Other comments or announcements? Then we will move to adjourn the March 23rd meeting at 8:42 p.m. And the next regularly scheduled meeting will be April 20th, 2022. Thank you all, and have a great night.
Thank you. Feel better, Commissioner Gutierrez.